Do you ever feel like you're not able to fully express yourself or play to the extent of your ability when playing in front of others? It could be as casual as in front of your aunt or in front of thousands of people, or it could be at that extremely important audition where your body just isn't able to properly keep up and execute all the material that you worked so hard for hours and hours in the practice room. Those are some of the challenges that I face and have been facing my entire life, and I want to share some of the secrets that helps me cope with these kind of issues. Hey, I'm Kevin Eknes and we're back. Yesterday I put up a poll on Instagram asking if you guys were interested in content regarding dealing with performance anxiety, and never has there been a poll that's been as one-sided as that one was. Now, this is one of the aspects of being a musician that I think is the most important. However, it's also one of the most kind of overlooked, might be because there's a lot of people who doesn't have to deal with these kind of challenges, or because those kind of challenges are too dear and personal to one person. They are very personal and dear to me because I've been struggling with this my entire life and still do. Some people might cope with it with different other things, alcohol, drugs, and all that sort of stuff, which might not be the best idea for dealing with it. Anyway, in a lot of self-help books, a lot of people talk about just two versions of your mind. So Tim Galloway, for instance, the author of Inner Game of Tennis, which I highly recommend, talks about person 1 and person 2, where person 1 is kind of what Eckhart Tolle, for instance, Power of Now, talks about egoic mind. It's the kind of part or the mind in you that always criticizes you, judges you. It's kind of confident in knowing that everything and all of that sort of stuff. And person number 2 is more the kind of flowy, that's more of the mechanics of your body. And person 1, more often than not, overlooks how incredible person 2 is. And if you ever have those shows or rehearsals or ever just play and it just flows and it sounds incredible, that is just person 2 working its kind of a thing. Now, person 1 wants to take credit of whatever person 2 does, and it doesn't want to give, kind of by default, it doesn't want to just lay all responsibility to person 2 because it doesn't kind of trust it. And person 1 is more what has control over your brain. Steve Peters from the Chimp Paradox talk about like chimps and goblins and all that sort of stuff kind of being a stronger force than the person 2. The person 2 is just acting. That's kind of how babies learn how to walk. They don't judge, like one baby doesn't look at the neighbor's baby thinking, oh, that baby learned to walk a week ago, so I better catch up and all that sort of stuff. It just does it, and it just looks and analyzes how people does a certain movement and stuff, and that's what you could do as a musician as well. Now, these are kind of very hard things to let go of, or the ego is very hard to let go of, because what that wants is it wants you to play good, like you want to sound good and all that sort of stuff. And kind of the paradox within that is that whenever you don't care about that, or whenever you stop trying, that's when you're actually going to start performing your very best. So there are certain methods that could help you. It could be taking your focus elsewhere. It could be you could entirely focus on your breathing versus focusing on like playing the lines or stuff like that. It could focus on a certain aspect, like you could focus on where does the snare hit, like is he in front of the beat, behind the beat, what is he, and just keep playing, like really have your focus elsewhere than within yourself, and try to stop criticizing yourself whenever you're kind of making a mistake, because you might know that like you're playing and then suddenly one mistake happens and it just snowballs, and that is because that egoic mind tries to fix that and tries to get you on the right path with all the good intentions, of course, but it fails in doing so because it takes away the responsibility that person 2 has, which is where all the incredible work and all the incredible artistic flow really comes from. Like you could also talk about brain hemispheres. One thing that we did at Berkeley with a teacher, a legendary teacher, Mick Goodrick, is that he made us do these drawings, but they were upside down. And keep in mind, I can barely draw a stick figure. But whenever you draw upside down, which is what we had to do, you stop criticizing yourself if it looks close enough to this thing or this thing, because you're not able to really tell what the different body limbs are or stuff like that. And so you just see like a general bigger picture, and that way you're kind of engaging the more creative side of you versus the more critical one. And so, funny enough, every student after doing the drawing would improvise and just play better and with a better flow afterwards, because you would stop criticizing yourself. So for a little while, something that I used to do was just find an upside down picture, or find a picture on Google, turn it upside down, go and draw it. It could not take longer than like 5 minutes, but like just getting in that sort of mindset and quiet your mind would really help. Just that organic flow that comes from within you, that's available within you, as long as you, of course, have worked on the ability. Trusting yourself to let go in the heat of the moment is one of those very, very difficult things. You might be able to do it every now and then, but chances are next show, the egoic or person one might just come and take responsibility back, because it's like, yeah, I got this and I know how to let go now. And at that point, that person or that side of your mind is in control again, and the flow is gone. I highly recommend you checking out Effortless Mastery by Werner. It's a book, but he also has master classes and courses online. I took a class with him at Berkeley, which was incredibly helpful, and you also got to meet a lot of other kids that were interested in the same kind of and facing those same kind of challenges. Anyway, it's really hard for the thinker part of your mind, or the person one, to really let go to person two or the flow, because the person one, by nature, it wants to understand everything, and when it doesn't understand what exactly person two does, because you can't really understand it, it's that need to want to understand it. That's the big challenge here, because you need to just be able to just see it for what it is really. It's kind of spaced out kind of a thing. A lot of people talk about Zen in Buddhism, or a lot of people, for instance, if you're a Christian, then a lot of people talk about playing through God or stuff like that, and that's the exact same thing. You're all playing from that kind of a space, which Werner calls it, and that's just where everything flows, and your body operates on that right now. And a lot of people don't realize or really give person two credit for how incredible it is, because right now, without even thinking about it, your heart is pumping blood through all your veins, you're inhaling, you're exhaling. If you're hot, then your body might give you sweats to tell yourself that you need to change environment, or if you're cold, it might give you shivers that you need to turn up the heat. And at the same time as all these function in your body is working, something else that's going on is your eyes are looking at this video, and it's also focusing everything else out and only focusing on that one thing, and you're listening in on it as well. And all of these bodily functions are just there constantly, and person one, or the egoic mind, doesn't give the other person credit for how incredible it actually is. And the person two is where the flow and where the good performance and playing really comes from. And so whenever you're having those moments where everything just plays real well, that's when you're just able to tap into the flow of music, or mother music as Victor Wooten calls it in the music lesson. Now, what are some of the tools that can help us letting go of that overthinking part of our minds and just let the music kind of flow through you? As I mentioned earlier, breathing is a great one. When you inhale, where do you feel it? Where do you feel it in your body? Where do you feel the air? Is it in your chest, your abdomen? Is it in your nose? And how long does it stay inside your body until it exhales? And when you finally exhale out, how long does that take until it's done and you're inhaling again? Or what does the strings feel like today? What's the sensation of just doing a vibrato? What's the sensation of doing a bend? What does the different notes feel like? And try to not get caught up in small details about your performance. Just tell yourself, I want to go do this thing, I want it to feel this, I want this song to feel badass here, and here I want it to be a little bit more laid back, and when the solo comes, I want the solar to start here, go here, and then I want to go here and then end up there, and just trust your person 2 to be able to execute that by just imagining that sort of way through it, and that person inside of you will guide you through that. Now these are just the ways that I like to deal with it. It's kind of out there, but I like listening to audiobooks. I'm gonna, in the info section below, I'm gonna leave a little reading list below if you're interested in the same kind of like learning if you want. I do it while I work out and all that sort of stuff. It's great entertainment, and it's great knowledge, and it kind of just gets my mind in the right mindset to keep working, really. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little talk. If this sort of content is something that you're interested in, then leave a comment below. If you didn't like it, let me know in the comment below as well. And without anything else to say, I'll see you soon.